Good evening, everybody. I'm Sam Levitt from the Ramblers Sports Network. Hope you're doing well and staying safe during this time. Welcome into the first edition of Porter's Mailbag. We're delighted to be joined by Loyola Athletic Director Steve Watson tonight, recently named the 2019-2020 NACDA Athletic Director of the Year. So, Steve, congratulations on that accomplishment. And tonight, we're also joined by, of course, the head men's basketball coach of the Ramblers, and that's Porter Moser. We'd like to welcome everybody in tonight, all of our season ticket holders, donors, men's basketball alumni, and friends of the program. Great to have you all here tonight and great to get together as one Rambler family tonight. Hope you're doing well, staying safe during this time. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and as always, appreciate your support of Loyola basketball. We received more than 150 questions in advance for our two guests tonight. We want to get to as many of those as we can. If you have another question that comes to mind during the session tonight, feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to submit your question, and we'll do our best to answer those as we go along. So if you have a question, let us know. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight, a lot of good questions already submitted. We're going to cover a number of different topics. So let's dive right in tonight. And we thought it would be appropriate to start tonight's Porter's Mailbag with a very special question from one of the most special members of our Ramblers family, and that is Sister Jean. Of course, Sister Jean begins every basketball game at Gentile Arena with her opening prayer and scouting report, so we thought only appropriate to start with a question submitted by Sister. And Steve, this one's for you. When this crisis began for us in March, you talked about the main priority and focus of the department being supporting the student athletes both academically and physically so they were able to finish the semester strong. Now that we're through finals week, what does the next phase for the university and athletic department look like, and what will be the process to determine the status of athletics for next year?
Thanks, Sam. And first I'll say, I feel like we shouldn't have even started this thing without a prayer from Sister Jean. It feels funny to start any kind of athletic function without Sister Jean leading off with a prayer. And that's not a softball question either. That's a tough one. I will say that she did her homework. Obviously, the first thing that we thought about when we entered into the pandemic was the safety of all of our athletes, all of our students, faculty, staff, the whole university community. And once we felt good about that, the next phase for us was to make sure that all of our athletes had what they needed to be successful in the classroom, make sure that they had the tools they needed, whether it was computers, laptops, Wi-Fi, all that. And I think we're gonna be real pleased with how we did academically. Had some great early reports on the grades our athletes were getting here this past semester. So we're excited about that. But the next phase is getting ready for the fall and getting ready to get back onto campus. And so I know our coaches are working real hard, putting summer programs together for the athletes, making sure that they're coming back to campus fit and ready to compete. Academically, we've got some of our athletes who will be taking some classes through the summer to make sure they're staying on track and doing what they need to do in the classroom. But one of the things that we've really emphasized is we want to come out of this stronger than where we were when we went into it. And that's something that I know all of our coaches have been talking about with their teams. We want to be stronger on the other end of this and be ready to compete for championships on the back end. And, as far as when and how that's going to look in the fall, there are just so many factors going into that it's hard to really nail down exactly what it's going to look like in the fall. But our focus is being ready and ready to go as soon as we get that green light.
And Porter, for you, obviously it's been difficult not being around your team. What do the next few months look like for you in terms of recruiting and preparing the team for next season when they're currently not on campus?
Well, I first want to say hello to everyone and welcome. I wish I could see you, but I don't. I can't see anybody but Sam and Steve. So I got the short end of that stick. But I do want, in terms of what it looks like for recruiting, I'm fortunate that we are not in a position. I have some of my colleagues around the country that are in a position where they have to sign 4 or 5 guys right now. And I can't imagine that. I can't imagine having to sign 4 or 5, which comes close to half your team, without building a relationship with them, without getting to have, them to come to campus and you come there. That's a tough dynamic. We did have one scholarship come open, Jalen Pipkins, awesome kid. I get it. We have everybody coming back, and we had Cooper and Braden sitting out, and he just wanted to play and play his last year. So wished him well, and he's going to find a great situation. I think he already did. But for us, we were able to sign another young man who kind of fits us in terms of, especially the future, Demezy Anderson. We signed him. He's a 6'6" guard, prolific high school scorer. Kind of like Clay Custer, didn't find his way his first, right away at the Power 5 school, but this kid's about winning, about getting better. We've had unbelievable success with development. I mean, think about it. Milton sat out, Clayton sat out, Marcus Towns sat out, Ahir sat out, Tate Hall sat out, Braden did. So that completes our recruiting for this year. And then we've been doing recruiting through Zoom for the next class. And today we just did another. You're doing Zoom virtual visits, trying to build relationships. I'm sitting there. One of the things it's hard because I like them to feel my energy and my passion to coach when you're there on campus. So I'm walking around with my computer. I'm running around my house trying to get high energy and showing them, what I'm going to be like coaching them. And so that's been a challenge, but we're doing that. And then the last part of your question with our team, same thing. It's just got to be through technology, and we're making the most of it. We're doing a ton of creative things. We're doing Zoom meetings every week. We've got accountability partners with 4 of them. And every week we're switching up the partners. We're doing all different kind of things that motivational, stay connected. But the university and our academic department did a great job with these student athletes. I know from my daughter being one of them here to our guys of making sure that the professors on this campus, the academic advisors, the tutors really did a great job making this hard time as good as it could be with the students going through their finals, finishing up their grades. And I want to commend the university for how they did academically finish up with the student athletes. Our guys just finished finals this weekend.
No, certainly in talking with a number of the head coaches from the Ramblers athletic department, everybody's in that same boat, trying to make sure their players get the most out of this current time. And certainly I've heard a lot of that doing some of the interviews we've done. Porter, looking back at last season, you started with a lot of new faces, ended the year with another 20-win campaign, a second-place Missouri Valley Conference finish. Now that you've had the chance to process last season, how proud are you of what your group accomplished?
Well, I'm very proud of how we grew and we got better. I thought we were playing our best at the end, and unfortunately, we had a tough Missouri Valley tournament loss at the end there. And but for one of us, I heard a lot of people saying because we were going to lose Clay and Marcus, that it was going to be a rebuilding year, losing 2 players of the year. And I felt we had some guys step up. I was confident in our recruiting. I thought Keith Clemens, he started off the year hurt with that surgery. And by the end of the year, I really think he was really coming into his own. That Marquise Kennedy, as a newcomer, being the 6th man of the year as a freshman and being an all-conference, I thought he played well. I thought Tate Hall, for playing his first year as Division I, getting 3rd team. So I think that's the whole vision of building a program, not a team, is sustainability. You lose great players, but you got to keep your energy recruiting great players. And I think we've done that, and exciting. You still had Cooper Keefus. There was times where we missed, obviously, his 3-point shooting. We're going to get him back. And Braden Norris sat out. I think fans are going to really enjoy seeing him play. But very proud of the guys' mentality to work, sustain. I thought we were getting better at the end of the year, but trust me, we talk about it on Zoom. There is a hole in our belly that is gonna hopefully rear its face here this next year.
We'll talk a little bit more about Cooper Keefus and some of the guys you have returning next season. I want to switch gears and talk about your lone senior this season, and that was Bruno Skokna. Finishes his career as the winningest Rambler of all time, 91 wins, a part of that amazing Final Four team, as we know. What can you say about Bruno and what he meant to the program, both on and off the court?
Who he is as a person is what you aspire to. I mean, he is he's probably been our best student over a 4-year period. I mean, he's graduating with, pretty much all A's in the business school. Just tremendous student. He's an unbelievable teammate. He obviously would have liked to play more his senior year, but not once was he never an unbelievable teammate. I mean, an unbelievable teammate. He was always trying to pour into the younger guys. He recognized guys like Marquise Kennedy, Tate Hall came in, and he recognized that, and he was so much about winning. I remember the first time that I really talked to him. We coming over from Greece, going over to see him in Greece, but he was all about winning. He literally, him and I joked about it. He said, "Coach, we're going to the NCAA tournament." That's what all he wanted to do, was go to the NCAA tournament. He said he watched it growing up, and I'm so proud that he was able to fulfill that. And he hit a huge shot for us. So forever, that shot he hit in the corner against Tennessee was a huge shot. But what I remember about Bruno is how good of a teammate, how great of a student he was. And then a note that he wrote Steve Watson and I this past week. He is going to finish his MBA this summer. And he wrote Steve Watson and I a note, and Steve and I talked about it, on how grateful he was for the Loyola experience and how someday he's going to be able to be in a position to repay for Loyola for what it has given him. And it just gives me chills talking about the young man he is.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, what it's all about, getting these student athletes to get ready for the next step in life. And certainly that's great news to hear about Bruno Skokna and his future at Loyola and beyond. Steve, I want to switch gears to you. One of the most common topics submitted by our fans for this mailbag was scheduling. And we got some very exciting news on that front last week with the announcement of the home and home series with DePaul, two great Chicago programs that now will meet again. Could you tell us about how that agreement got made and what the renewal of that Chicago rivalry means for the athletic department and the program?
Sure. One thing I'll say to start is it's long overdue, and we're excited about it. We're excited to play them. Jeannie Ponsetto, their athletic director, and I have spoken about it for years. It just hasn't worked out, hasn't come to fruition. But for us to be able to play them over the course of the next 2 years is really exciting. We play them in every one of our other sports. Women's basketball, women's volleyball, men's women's soccer, softball. So all our sports compete with DePaul, and we just haven't been able to make it work up until this coming year. As far as the rivalry goes, I think for me, not being a Chicago guy, I didn't grow up here. I think Porter can speak to that probably a little bit better than I can, but I do know and remember as a kid, Al Frederick Hughes and the great teams from Loyola back in the 80s, and of course the teams that DePaul had back in the 80s with Mark Aguirre and Terry Cummings and those guys. And so there's a lot of history, and we're just really excited to be able to kick that up again and start to play that. We're real excited to get that going next year.
Now, certainly that will be so much fun. I know I was so excited when I saw that news. And when you talk about college basketball in the great city of Chicago, that will be a great rivalry renewed between DePaul and Loyola. Porter, I know the schedule is still coming together. Maybe some things you can tell us, some things that you're not quite sure about yet, but anything else you can share about how next year's schedule is shaping up?
Scheduling is getting so brutal that I'd rather go get a root canal than talk about scheduling. But it's been very difficult, and I know people are they don't want to hear it, and either do I. We've tried continuing, just so Rambler fans know, we are trying to have the most elite schedule, but just like any contract in business, it has to be a two-way street. But we do have we are returning the game against Davidson. How the quad one works, if you get a road win and they are between 1 and 75 in their net rating, that is considered a quad one win. So we're hoping that Davidson is really good, and we're hoping to go in and get a win, and that could be a quad one win. Furman's been very, very good. They have everybody back except one guy. We got Furman coming back home. So I think that the DePaul game, we're in the Myrtle Beach Classic. You saw some teams in there. Dayton, very, very good team. There's a lot of teams that have good, that have possible chances to move up into the net, into that quad one. I mean, Utah State, they don't have the name nationally, but they are very, very good. Penn is very good. I think Pitt is in it. Missouri has everybody back. Pitt had everybody back. Nebraska's in it. So I think that's going to be a chance to get a couple good games in there. And we're still ongoing. We're not complete with it, but we've tried. I mean, we're still every day. We're trying to get the most elite schedule, but it's got to be a two-way street. And I think they look at who we have returning, and sometimes they go the other way.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to at Gentile Arena. I know I've only been around the program for a couple of years, but the atmosphere, the environment, it's got that big-time college basketball feel, and really just says so much about what you've done with the program. And again, if you're just joining us tonight on our first edition of Porter's Mailbag, we're joined by Loyola Athletic Director Steve Watson, head men's basketball coach Porter Moser. We appreciate all our season ticket holders, donors, members of our Ramblers family joining us here tonight. And we're taking your questions as we go, so you can use that Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. If you have a question tonight, let us know, and you might have it asked here tonight to either Steve or Porter. Porter, let's dive into next year. This is really exciting because you return a starting five that will all be seniors in the 2020-2021 season. Cam Krutwig, Keith Clemens, Ahir Ugwak, Tate Hall, Lucas Williamson. How big will it be to have those senior leaders in place heading into next year?
Well, that's the one thing. You hope you create a senior urgency. And, Bruno was our only senior, and he was not really in the rotation. And I especially you hope that how one negative thing in your life happens, it can, propel another. And hopefully that loss at the end of the tournament fuels them. And but you want to be older. You want to be that senior urgency. But I do think we got some pieces. I think I think some guys are going to improve. I think the camaraderie. Here's another dynamic that's interesting is we don't know what the landscape's going to look like. To this day, like as of right now, we don't know if we're going to even be able to work with our guys this summer. And then the fall, what it's going to look like. So I know for us, it's not like we got a whole new team or a half a new team to put everything in. We have some veterans that we're constantly talking through some things but with that, we all got to get better. We got to get better and turn the needle in a lot of areas. And that's what this pandemic, hopefully, it's a time to, self-reflect, get better, whatever your field is, whatever it is, self-improvement, professional development, relationship improvement. And those are things we're trying to control right now with our guys. But we do add Cooper Keefus. Cooper's been out with an injury. I know some people saw him on the end of the bench this year. And for us locals and Bears fans, I know he sometimes thought he was Matt Suey sitting there on the end of the bench. But one thing I know about Cooper, and this is a stat that no one knows about except our team, his freshman year, he never lost a sprint. Literally never lost a sprint, Cooper Keefus. He won every sprint in boot camp all year long. So he's going to get back in shape. He's already back, cleared. He was cleared right before the pandemic hit. So I know he's doing everything. I know he's going to come back. He's going to get in shape. He'll be back with that. And he was really hitting his stride at the end of his freshman year. And he just gives you another scoring weapon with that. Braden Norris sat out. It is another guy that's really, he had a great freshman year at Oakland, one of the most efficient offensive players in the country. He had like 100 and some assists, low turnovers. He made over 83s. So I like our mix. I like our mix of guys. But the thing that's really going to turn the needle to the right is our senior urgency. Leadership. Part of great leaders is they create ownership. And I've challenged all those seniors during this time in their communication with the other players is to create ownership amongst everyone on the team to turn that dial right. There's got to be a lot of self-motivation going on when you're by yourself right now. And that's what the seniors got to do. They got to be really great leaders during this time when we're all quarantined.
Now, certainly that senior leadership, guys like Krutwig, Williamson, we named the starters that are coming back, all seniors, a great thing for the program. We had a question come in from both Brian Dinsmore and John Adams about Cooper Keefus, how his recovery is coming along. And I know you've talked about that already a little bit, but, it's almost easy to forget with Cooper that he was an all-freshman performer a couple of seasons ago. So for those of us that have maybe forgotten about what he brings on the court, what will he bring into that mix from a playing perspective?
Cooper actually had a lot of assists. He was right there. It would have been like his freshman year. He had a ton of assists. Look at his stats. It'll surprise you for how many assists he had. He was doing a good job of learning to put on the deck a little better. As you get older, you get confidence. When you're a freshman, there's a lot of unknown. When you're going through, and then you start to be wiser and you understand some things. And I think every guy that's ever sat out for us said they just had a different perspective sitting out and watching it all happen. And Cooper's no different, sitting there on the sideline, watching everything, So I think he's going to, definitely improve for that and add another dynamic with that, with his scoring, with his ability to pass and create. He's more athletic than you think. He's really talked about, seeing things and understanding the schemes defensively better. That's one of the things he said he really took away from watching this year sitting out, is he felt that he had more of a sense of how our team defense worked. So that's a huge positive.
And these are two names you've already mentioned a bit here in this conversation, but two others suiting up for the Ramblers for the first time next year, one being Braden Norris, the transfer from Oakland, the other being incoming freshman Baylor Hebb. This question comes from Dan Alexander. This offense will have so many different outside shooting weapons like Kafis, like Keith Clemens, who had some huge threes last season. We know what Lucas Williamson can do from the outside. Tate Hall as well had some huge games. Marquise Kennedy, who was a freshman sensation of sorts, and now Norris and Hebb. Your thoughts about that outside shooting capability from this roster as a whole?
Well, that it's interesting because the line was moved back this year, and I was asked, and a lot of my colleagues around the country were asked, is that going to make a difference that the line got moved back? And all of our responses was no. No, it's not. Well, I think it proved to everyone it did. The numbers show it. And I think what you naturally do is as a shooter, you naturally gravitate farther back. And I think, and I think that's what happened. And I just, for some reason, but Cooper and Braden, those are day in and day out two of our best shooters. And Baylor Hebb, I think people are going to really love Baylor Hebb coming in. And I'll tell you one other thing, because people are talking about our numbers of playing. I'll tell you, I listened to a podcast with Steve Kerr. He was on he's doing a podcast with Coach Carroll of the Seahawks. And one of the things he said is when he took over the Warriors, he talked about, like, he came in and just said, you know what, there's a lot of guys here. Let's our mantra be strength in numbers. Let's overwhelm people with our strength in numbers. And sometimes there's motivation on telling your guys when you got a lot of guys, hey, you better do this because certain guys aren't going to play. I'm confident that our guys are motivated. I'm confident that they're all trying to do. My mantra this offseason is let's overwhelm people with numbers, and push it. Obviously, if no one's guarding, they're not going to play. But if strength in numbers, that can be a positive in everything. And let that problem fall on my shoulders. I'm trying to figure out who to play. But for their standpoint, man, I think depth, strength in numbers, guys that can shoot the ball, you can't get enough of it. And I'm excited. The other thing, and I'll move on real quick though, is I'm also proud of sustainability of this. Is I think 3 straight years we've had 4 guys on the all freshman team. Crut was freshman of the year. Lucas was also on the all freshman team. Then Cooper, and then Marquise. And that shows you're constantly trying to bring in young talent and develop it. And very, very excited about what we continue to do.
You mentioned listening to the podcast with Steve Kerr, and I know I've read some about you being on some of these Zoom calls with other coaches around the country. So I'm curious, Porter, what has this time been like personally for you as a head coach, and what are you trying to get out of this time as far as your development as a coach?
Well, I alluded to it earlier. I just think for me, first of all, it's a mindset. You got to there's certain people that thrive on complaining and thrive on negativity, and it nourishes them. And I'm not one of those people. And obviously, we're all in this new world, this boat where we want to get out, but we can't. And so I've looked at it for trying to figure out what things could I do that I would. Sometimes you go from the season to recruiting to camps to more recruiting, and next thing you know, you're in the fall. And been doing a lot of self-development, self-improvement, professional development. I'm doing 2 clinics a week with a group of coaches on just breaking down everything. My staff and I are really breaking down different things with our offense and our defense and things you can do better. I'm blessed. I have 4 teenagers, and my life the last 4 years that they're in that age group, people are blowing and going. This team, this game, this AU tournament, my travel. Now all of a sudden, I mean, I'm getting great at spike ball, by the way. I'm kicking my boys' butts in spike ball. But we're having dinner together every night. We're playing games, and it's a chance to really build on your relationship building as much as your self-improvement and professional development as well.
Yeah, that's tremendous, and good to hear that you're spending time with family during this time for sure. Steve, let's turn back to you. This question, a really good one, comes from Frank Biga. Last summer, you traveled to.
Sam, before we go to that question, can we
Yeah,
ask Porter, can he talk a little bit more about Matsui? I don't think that got enough play.
I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna be very honest. I don't know what he's talking about.
Oh, come on.
Oh,
I know there's a bunch of Rambler fans back there knows that. Can't remember the fullback for the Bears. Played
Oh,
at Penn State.
I was a New York kid growing up. Yeah.
Man,
I thought you were going to go.
Most Bears fans know who Matsui is.
Who was the nose tackle back then
The nose tackle
for the Bears?
Well, on that '85 Bears team, the whole line was the Fridge, McMichael, Denton, Hampton, and you had Wilbur Marshall, Otis Wilson, and Singletary. Oh, trust me, that 85 Bears.
Who was the Notre Dame guy though that played? Wasn't he a nose?
That's Zorich. Zorich came after that world. Michael Zorich. He came afterwards.
That's who I was thinking of. Gotcha.
Yeah, Michael Zorich.
All right, sorry.
All right, well, no, it's all good. I'm watching this Last Dance thing on ESPN. I'm learning a lot about the Bulls. I got to learn about the Bears too. Steve, this question comes from Frank Biga. It's a really good one, I think. Last summer, you traveled to fellow Jesuit school Gonzaga to pick the brains of athletics and university leaders there and learn how they grew into such a West Coast power at Gonzaga. What were your takeaways from that trip?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that whole trip was driven by the former chair of the board of trustees, Bob Parkinson, and as those of you who are close to the university and close to athletics know, we lost Bob way too young, and was an inspiration, a friend, and a mentor for a lot of folks, and I know. We miss him dearly, and as soon as you mentioned that Gonzaga trip, that's the first thing that pops into my head. But what it was it was a chance for us to take a look at how somebody operates, somebody that we want to be like, how they operate, how they run their department, how the university supports their athletics, and really how much they focus on men's basketball, and how that really drove the entire, not just the athletic department, but the brand of the entire university. And so one of the things that was great for us to see is that you can do it without playing in one of the Power 5 conferences, without being in the Big East. And they've had a ton of success, but they're supported at the very highest level. And that's one of the things that we definitely took away from that trip is that if you focus on it, if you fund it, if you support it, you've got a chance. And we've already shown that we can have success at the national level. And now it's just a matter of sustaining that. And so great trip. And appreciated the fact that the chair of our board of trustees, the president of the university, and one of our senior VPs, Tom Kelly, all made that trip together with us. So it was a good trip and well worth our time.
Certainly sounds like a great trip, really valuable for you and members of the athletic department. Our next question comes from Steve Timble, who wants to hear your thoughts on the state of the Missouri Valley Conference and how the league can get back to becoming a regular multi-bid conference again.
That's a really good question. If he knows the answer, if there's any kind of magic wand or anything that can get us multiple bids, please let us know. Porter talked earlier about scheduling, and scheduling is a big part of it. And the challenge is we know we've got to play high-level teams. He talked about quad 1, quad 2, and it's so important to play those games. But the challenge is getting those teams to play us. And we're going to keep trying and plugging away. We're playing in an excellent tournament this year. We're slotted to play in another great preseason tournament next year. So we're doing everything and anything we can. But everybody else has to do that as well. If you want to be successful in men's basketball in the NCAA now, you've got to invest in it. You have to support it at the highest level. And, we're doing all that we can. But in order for the conference to be strong across the board, the rest of the schools need to step up and do the same as well. And so it's a challenge, especially in these times when the economy, we have no idea what it's going to look like going forward. But for us, the importance of being successful in men's basketball isn't going to change. And we're going to continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be successful at the national level.
Certainly good to hear. And again, if you're just joining us tonight for our first edition of Porter's Mailbag, we appreciate you tuning in. Welcome to all our season ticket holders, donors, and various members of our Ramblers family. We're joined by Loyola Athletic Director Steve Watson and head men's basketball coach Porter Moser, both kind enough to take some time with us tonight. Porter, speaking of the MVC, this question comes from Ken Nowak. How do you see the Valley shaping up this coming season?
Just like every year, we kind of as coaches know who the recruiting because we see them on the road. We just don't read about them. We see them with our own eyes. And I think this year is the same thing. But I do think there's a lot of returning players. I think this year's freshman class was one of the best freshman class in the Valley in a long time. I think there could have been 9 or 10 guys on the all freshman class that got playing time. Northern Iowa won the league by a game. Still pissed about that, but they have 2 first teamers back. AJ Green, I know he put his name into the draft. I fully anticipate him coming back. And they're big men. So they got 2 first team all league players. They lose a couple guys, but they are kind of like us. They got such a good culture going, and they seem to bring guys in that didn't play that have been around it. So I think Northern Iowa is going to be right up there. Bradley's had the experience. I know they lose 2 seniors, but they got Childs and Henry back. They had 2 transfers sitting out. They had 2 Division I transfers sitting out that'll be eligible to play. So I think Bradley's done a nice job. Indiana State's kind of a dark horse because I think Tyree Key's one of the best players in our league, and he's a senior. They had 2 really nice big men in Laravia and Williams inside, and they took 2 grad transfers. They just took 2 transfers grad, and we'll see how that plans out because they're very good players, but not being able to work with the guys this summer, we'll see. I just think there's a lot of teams that Missouri State is very, very talented. They got a lot of guys back. Prim, their big man, is back. I mean, Missouri State, they were picked 1 last year based on their talent level, and you can see at the end of the year they were playing well, getting to that championship game. But Missouri State's got a lot of talent, and they got some kids coming in. So I think the league is maintaining a high level recruiting to where you're going to see freshmen and newcomers surface on the all league teams like they did again this year.
Porter, you mentioned that you could have had 9 or 10 freshmen on that all freshman team this season. You had one heck of a freshman in your own in Marquise Kennedy, who just had some incredible performances. I mean, I remember the game against Valpo. He took it over, a huge reason why you won quite a few games this year, the way he played. Your thoughts on Marquise Kennedy's season and what he did?
He was growing so much. Like, if you remember, he got thrown into the fire trying to play point guard out of the gate. He's more of a combo guard. He can do both. But to take over a program with the culture we have going and the expectations and the way we do things on both ends, with Keith Clemens getting hurt, he all of a sudden was our only point guard through like the first 8 or 10 games. And I think that was a lot for him. And one of my favorite Marquise moments, besides on the floor, was in a press conference with Keith Clemens and him. And all of a sudden, Marquise said how absolutely great a leader Keith Clemens is and how good, a teammate, how much he's learned from him. And I'm like, what an awesome thing to say. This freshman was starting every game. The moment Keith Clemens came back, Marquise started coming off the bench. And here he is glorifying Keith. It was completely who we are. And it reminded me of the press conferences in the NCAA tournament with these guys. And I thought he grew maturity-wise, mentally and physically all year. I think his shot is improving daily throughout the year. He got stronger. He really got stronger, and he just has an amazing knack. I said it when we started coaching. He's the fastest player I've ever coached. That first step is deadly, and he's got long arms, and he can kind of go by you and finish at the rim. And I'm excited to see his growth, and it's an important time for him. Self-motivation, by yourself, what he's doing. And I know he just finished finals, and he's getting ready to go to work.
Kennedy, the freshman, I also want to ask you about Cam Krutwig, the senior. I mean, you look at the career he's had already heading into his senior season. Freshman goes to the Final Four. Sophomore, he really inserts himself as maybe the best player in the conference. Junior season comes back, has a great year. Where is the room for growth for Cam, and what do you expect from him as a senior?
I've just set the bar so high for him. What sticks out just shows you how high I set the bar and how ignorant I am. I remember getting interviewed by Pete Gillen after the Vanderbilt game, and I was mad at Krutwig for something at the end of the game. He turned it over, and we win, and right away Pete Gillen throws the microphone in front of my face, and I'm sitting there live on TV, and he goes, "Yeah," and I'm not very happy, and he goes, "Yeah, how about Krutwig getting a triple-double?" And I'm like, "What?" I had no idea he had a triple-double, and that just shows you the bar I set for him, and he really truly sets it for himself. I really feel that, like he called me last night. He was riding his bike home from the track. He runs at night, and he just called to shoot the bull. And we were just talking. I think he's kind of wired because he understands that with 1 year left, he wants to leave a huge legacy. And what I like about him is, yes, he's going to leave a huge legacy. I mean, we've won 74 games in 3 years, and his mindset is more, as is Lucas's. And I love that. And I think they, like I said earlier, like we've had tons of conversations. This urgency, this hole in our belly from that last game is something that needs to fuel us. But you couldn't be prouder as Rambler fans to coach and to root for more quality guys. I'm telling you, his heart, his drive, what he wants to do for this script Loyola is everything you'd want for in a fan, as a parent, as a coach.
Yeah, I'm with you. And just the limited time I've spent around some of these guys, whether it be a Krutwig or a Williamson or a Keith Clemens or a Marquise Kennedy even, it's been remarkable to see some of the young men that you have in the program. You both talk about family and culture a great deal when you talk about Loyola athletics. And those characteristics have been very real for you both recently. Steve, your daughter recently wrapped up her career on the Loyola volleyball team. Porter, your daughter just finished her freshman year on the women's basketball team. Steve, we'll start with you. What's it like to have immediate family as such a close part of your life at Loyola?
But before I answer that question, I want to say I've been scrolling through the questions coming in from people, and we got to get to some of these, and you got to take the lead on a couple because these are pretty good. So my daughter, her graduation day was supposed to be today. It was supposed to be this morning, and so it's a funky day for us. I sent her a text this morning and just telling her how proud we all are of her, and but it's hard because we didn't get a chance to watch her walk down the aisle and get the diploma, and so it's difficult. But I can tell you, and Porter and I talked about this when Jordan was deciding where she wanted to go to school. There is nothing better than having one of your kids, and for us, our daughters, in the athletic department. We see them almost every day. Sometimes they don't want to see us, or they might try to ignore us. But 99% of the time, they seek us both out, and it's been fantastic, an unbelievable experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And one of the things that we made sure when Jordan was making her decision is I wanted to make sure my daughter, Allison, was able to spend some time with Jordan and talk to her about, it's different. It might be funky at times, but I think she had a great experience. And I think Jordan did this first year as well. So we have an unbelievable family atmosphere in our department. And it extends to be able to extend that to our kids and have them be a part of it. We couldn't be luckier. It was a great experience. And I know Jordan's having a great experience with it as well.
And Porter, what about your daughter on the women's basketball team? I watched a great news piece about it a couple of months ago. What's that been like?
I'll just echo what Steve just said. Steve and I had a conversation, and I'm so grateful to Steve for the insight he gave me. He literally talked about it. He said, it's amazing. All of a sudden you're sitting there and your daughter pops in your office and says, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" And he literally said that to me. And I remember the first time she did it, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And it was really cool because you don't get to see her at home every day all of a sudden. Everyone knows when their first child goes away. It's just, and I will say this speaks to Steve, his daughter Allison was absolutely phenomenal to Jordan. Truly one of Jordan's favorite people on our campus. And she was so good to her, welcoming her, as all the student athletes. There's like a sorority and fraternity amongst all the athletes. And Steve's daughter was so great and kind and gracious and made the transition and answered questions for Jordan. And she loved it. She just loved the friendship she's had and the vibe. And and everything. And so it's been a great experience for me as well.
Porter, I've got one more question for you. Then, Steve, I'm going to let you pick some of these questions that are coming in. I'm going to let you drive the bus and pick what are the best ones. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I get this one in, though? This is fantastic.
Yes, go.
So somebody asked how, Porter, you look fantastic. How are you staying fit during this pandemic, during this time? I had to ask. And if anybody knows Porter, he is a slave to the workout. And other than when he pulled his calf muscle during the one game during the season, I don't think he ever misses a workout every day, any day. And so I know he's doing something.
Absolutely, yeah. My calf strain. You know, my players love talking about that, but I fought through that. I came through it. No, but I'm just so big on it. Mentally refreshes you. I have to do it in the morning, and whatever it is. But I did do this. I should start getting some pieces of the pie with Peloton, because I've had like 12 of my friends get them now. But I do like the Peloton because it's competitive. And there's a million different workouts, and I'm very competitive on the leaderboard and everything. I have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, I'm fortunate. We just have an area in the basement to work out in, and it gets a little harder when you're older, but I just think it's so good mentally to stay sharp. And you know, you work out by shooting 400 3-pointers a day. So, you know, so I know you get that workout in, and I'm just trying to keep up with you.
By the way,
that's because when I was really playing, my coaches never let me shoot three. So now I'm trying to make up for it. I'm going to say this one. There's a question from Dave Kupiak, and Dave's a friend of Porter, of both Porter and me. And he asked about the importance of fan attendance. And I think that's something we didn't really touch on. And he said he's noticed increasing student alumni fan attendance for all of our sporting events. And as soon as I hear about attendance, I think of Porter and what's happened with men's basketball, but also Neil Jones with our men's soccer program. It's one of the programs that's really focused on trying to drive attendance for their games out at Hoyne Field, and it makes such a big difference. I know Porter can speak to how important it is to recruiting and making the guys feel good and excited about getting ready to play a game. But it's something that we've worked really hard at. Things like this help. It gets people excited about the season, get excited about Loyola athletics. Our ex-ops team does an amazing job. Brian Day, who most people who are listening on this, they all know Brian, but he's got a good team of folks that help him. Austin Hansen, Mary Kate, who does our graphics. We've just got a really good team of folks who really focus on this. And as a result, we've seen really increased attendance. It's important, and I know Porter can speak to that.
You know, on a handful of things, you know, one is the fall sports. I mean, for anybody that hasn't gone down to Hoyne Field to see both the men's and women's soccer, first of all, they're championship programs. But what the students go, it makes the atmosphere so much fun. And the volleyballs and the basketballs at Gentile. You know, I remember trying to turn our program around, and it was just so hard to constantly every day with your guys of trying to, you know, believe, work harder. We're going, this is where we're going, sharing the vision, and they run through the tunnel and there's no one there. And it was always a kick in the gut. Conversely, running through the tunnel and seeing students out there 40 minutes before a game and to see you fans there. I think the ex-ops, Steve just touched on, Brian Day, his team, and all the people. Before, if you had a season ticket, you know, if you didn't go to the game, you didn't go to the game. Now there's such a passion to give the tickets away, give them back, get people in the stands. And it's making all the difference in the world to our guys, and the numbers prove it. I mean, out of the last 29 conference home games, the last 27 conference home games, we are 25-2 at home the last 3 years in the Valley, 25-2. And trust me, one of the losses was against Indiana State. Brent Scott hit that crappy bank shot. Clay was out, Ben was out. That one still bothers me with that. And but back to the point is the crowd's been unbelievable, and the numbers have done it, and it makes all the difference in the world of student athletes. And I can just tell you that firsthand from going from when it didn't to now it does. So please keep that passion going.
Are you going to let me keep going, Sam?
I'll get to a couple more. By the way, I just want to make one point on the Peloton. I do not have the bike, although Porter, I got to tell you, if you're interested, their app or their website, you can do it on your laptop too. They're great, fantastic.
There's all different things you can do. You can do all kinds of stuff.
I know you don't need the bike. They're great.
Right.
They're
That's
awesome.
right.
All right, Steve. Yeah, go ahead and pick some more.
So we were talking about Chicago sports before, and Lori Cladis asked about the Last Dance and asked if we were watching the Last Dance. And I know Porter's definitely watching the Last Dance, but I think any sports fan in the country, especially if you're in Chicago, is going to watch and follow that. And Lori asked if we found it inspiring. And I've just been totally entrenched in the whole story. And for me, I was growing up at that time and not necessarily a Bulls fan, but as a basketball fan, following that story and hearing now kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff has been fascinating. It's a great story, and they're doing a fantastic job with the production.
Yeah, I absolutely. It's a Sunday night event for us. We have dinner, and then we all sit and watch it as a family. And for me, growing up, just such a diehard Chicago fan, I had the Super Bowl with the Bears. It was like the first one. I mean, the Cubs were not doing well, and then the Bulls era came, and it was just so much pride that we had. We had Michael Jordan, and I sent a picture out through Twitter of me. As a basketball player at Creighton, they hired college players to be the counselors at that camp from Nike schools, and I got connected at Elmer's College, and I worked the camp for 2 summers in a row. And it was an unbelievable job. It was the best job. I did it 2 summers in a row, and Michael was in his first couple of years, and his jumping ability is nothing we ever seen before, but the competitiveness. I remember one takeaway I had, Steve Kerr said it in episode 1 or 2. He said, Michael Jordan plays every game like there's someone in the stands that has never seen him play before, that he wanted to prove you wrong and prove that he was the best. And one of the parts of the job I had to do is I had to play in the counselor game in front of the campers. So we'd play for 30 minutes and the coaches put the kids to bed, and he would want to play for another hour and a half and rip our throats out. I mean, just rip our throats out. I mean, he was so competitive. Then we'd go back to the dorms and he'd want to play Tunk, the card game, and take the money he was paying us for camp. And it would just resonated so much. But with my own kids, I love hearing, like, driving the kids over the years to AAU games and seeing them in the back, and they're in a discussion, who's the greatest, Kobe or LeBron? And I'm like, you're forgetting number 23 in this conversation, because you forget they weren't in it. And nothing to disparage those two, because I think they're unbelievable. But it's awesome to see my teenagers get a picture of what life was like, the pandemonium, the circus, the spotlight on his mindset. His mindset compared with that talent, I just love it. I'm just completely think it's awesome at a time we're dying for sports, but it's so close to home with us being Bulls fans and in Chicago.
Yeah, it's even been cool for me as, somebody who was born in the 90s, and I didn't grow up in Chicago. I know Pippen and MJ and all these different guys, know the names, but even like the stories about the Olympics, and Tony Kukoc, and I had no idea that, honestly, that they played each other in the Olympics, and MJ and Pippen were saying, hey, let us have them. I mean, just those stories have been, they've been tremendous, even for somebody who's not, originally a Bulls fan or originally from Chicago. It's been cool.
I got to jump in. So Jerry Corcoran, Jerry Corcoran just turned 60. We'll say 60. He just turned 60. Had a big birthday last week, and he asked a question. So first, happy birthday to Jerry.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
He asked if Tate has 2 years of eligibility left, and I think the answer to that is unfortunately no. He only has 1 year of eligibility left. But happy birthday to Jerry. And this one is classic. This comes from Mike R. He says, Coach, I'm writing you from the Bay Area. What's up with the fire? Is it still cold back there?
You like my fire? This is for Neil Jones. I hope the soccer coach is doing this. We're on a Zoom meeting with the coaches every week with Steve, and he keeps stealing my background. So he first he had my office. So we're looking up there. Next thing I know, I'm seeing my office. So then he plotted with my daughter through Kate. And next thing I know, they took a picture of my background, but I had to turn on my automatic fire. I'm actually freezing. I'm up here in the office, and it was hot. You know how it was hot a couple days ago? I think they tried to crank the AC up, and now it's colder out. So I am freezing. But yeah, that's my sorry.
So somebody asked about the golf outing. Mark asked about our golf outing. That's TBD. We're hopeful that we'll be able to host the golf outing. It's scheduled for early August, but that's a TBD. And then he also asked about guys staying healthy. And Porter can answer that one better than I can. But he mentioned Frank and Bruno in particular, our international guys. And maybe Porter can talk a little bit about what those guys are doing to stay healthy, safe.
So they're still on campus. Frank's in Fordham Hall, and Bruno's at the apartments right there on the edge of campus. And my staff's doing a great job, constantly being able to provide food and groceries and all that with them. Frank's cooking. I mean, Frank, the other day he went to the Nigerian supermarket and he got this full fish with the head on it, and he cooks. He was telling us, we have a team Zoom meeting every week, and he was telling us how he was cooking the fish. But it's got to be hard for them. You worry about loneliness. You worry about all that different things going on right now, and but they're here on campus, and our staff's doing a good job trying to get them food and everything. But yeah, they can't go home. Everybody else, I'll tell you another interesting thing is it's going to be interesting when we do get to come back, not only for basketball but for professional sports, of not coming back too fast because of injury, because athletes aren't used to taking this much time off.
Right.
And I know I'm already discussing with colleagues of mine of easing back into it, because we're going to be so excited to jump back in whenever we do, that there's going to be a mindset of, and I think football's got to really be is going to be on the mind with them as well, of when they jump back. I just think it's something to discuss, and hopefully we're healthy, but there's really nothing that we've had to do to get injured. But right now we're healthy and safe, thankfully.
That's good to hear. Steve, you got any others you want to get to?
Go ahead. I'm going to stay in my lane now.
No, that was great. That was great getting to the questions, and a lot of really good questions in here, by the way. I'm taking a look and a scroll through, and we appreciate everybody chiming in and asking a bunch of really good questions tonight. Porter, before we wrap up, I want to talk about your first book, All In. I've got it in the mail. I started reading it this week. It's off to a really good start. Tell us about the motivation for writing the book and what it's all about.
Well, I always thought when I was going to write a book, when I was working for Rick Majerus, I read a book when I was younger called Playing for Night by Steve Alford. And I just found it was so interesting, because growing up, I always was wondering what it was like to play for night. And the question that I was asked most was, what's it like working with Majerus? And I started journaling, and I have hundreds of pages of and I always thought if I wrote a book, it was going to be called Working for Majerus. And after the run, I was approached by the Loyola Jesuit Press, and it just turned into a project. And I met with John Gordon, the author, who has become a friend of mine. And he said, if you're going to write a book, write it with the mindset that your kids will be proud of it. And it just was about my journey of just through faith, to purpose, finding my purpose, overcoming the obstacles in my career, and different things. And I'll never forget my daughter. She was on the bus driving to Peoria, and she was about halfway through it, and she sent me the most priceless text I've ever had in my life. And it was it made the whole project worthwhile. But it's just, I didn't come from this blue blood coaching tree until I worked for Majerus, and I wasn't an NBA player, and I found purpose and happiness in a place that I love, and overcome a lot of obstacles doing it, and just talks about my journey. So yeah, that's thanks for the shameless plug. I didn't know it was on the script, but now that the plug is on, but it's called All In, and it's about my journey.
Oh, that's awesome. And I started it this week and have really enjoyed it. A lot of good stuff in there already. Steve, any other questions you want to get to from the comment section before we wrap up?
I don't think so. We've only got a couple of minutes, so why don't we can hit the last questions.
Okay, sounds good. And maybe, who knows, we'll do this again and get to some more of those questions. Well, I'll give both of you a final few words for the alumni, for our viewers tonight, for parts of our Rambler family. And Porter, I'll start with you.
Well, first of all, thanks for being on. I wish I could see you. I wish we could be face-to-face in the Den or at Ireland's or in Gentile at one of our practices. But I can just assume of all the faces that I've seen over the years that are out there right now. So I want to wish your families safety, health, my prayers if there's someone in need. But just we're going to come out of this better and stronger as a country, as a community, as a Loyola community, I just know we're going to come out of this thing stronger, better, whenever it does. And just very, very thankful and blessed to be a part of the Loyola community. And
Steve, we'll throw it over to you.
Oh, there you go. My background. Look at you. That's from Neil Jones. That's Neil Jones at work right there.
I changed locations for this last question.
You don't have that right there though.
I don't have I wasn't able to get the fire going, but this was all the work of our good friend Neil Jones.
My conniving daughter who traded on me. She came up here and took a picture so they could ridicule me.
Just hanging out in Porter's living room. I'm sorry, Sam. We got one more question. I know we've just got a couple more minutes.
No, it looks like a comfortable living room. Yeah, just Steve, your final thoughts tonight, just for the fans, the alumni, the supporters that are on this tonight during this time as we all get through it.
The last thing I want to say is how much we appreciate everybody's support, and hopefully they can see and understand kind of what we've got going at Loyola now. We have a great time. We enjoy busting on each other, but we're doing things the right way. When you look at what our athletes are doing in the classroom, they do an unbelievable job. We have the top graduation success rates in the country. We've been in the top 2 for the last 4 years. That's not going to change. We don't compromise on the academic excellence, and that's a tribute to the coaches and who they're recruiting. It's a tribute to the academic support that we provide them when they come to campus. It's a tribute to the support they get from the professors when they get here, the flexibility that they have with the scheduling. And so the academic piece isn't going to change. Our coaches and athletes do an unbelievable job serving the community. They're active and involved on campus. So they're doing it academically. They're doing it in the community, and we're winning championships. When you see the success we've had these past few years, it's been phenomenal. Our soccer teams are winning championships. Women's volleyball is doing an unbelievable job. Women's cross country won the conference championship last year. Men's volleyball won a national championship not that long ago. And of course, our men's basketball team had a nice run a few years ago. And we're just real proud. I think our athletes represent our university unbelievably well. And we appreciate all the support that we get, not just from our season ticket holders, but our alumni, our donors, and all the friends of the Ramblers. And so we're going to keep doing things like this. You know, when we went into this pandemic, one of the things we talked about is we're going to make sure Loyola athletics stays relevant. And so we've done a lot with social media. We've made sure that our coaches are accessible. Porter's been on the local radio, national radio. We've had a ton of stories in the Tribune, and that's not going to change. We're going to continue to push and make sure that we stay relevant during these tough times. And we do appreciate all your support.
No, and I'm with you. It's been amazing to talk with some of the different head coaches from some of the programs around the athletic department. It just makes you realize as you talk to some of these head coaches how special each program is and how much success all these different programs have had over the last handful of years. By the way, before we go, we want to give Jerry Harkness a very happy birthday shout out. He is turning 80 on Thursday, Steve.
Happy birthday, Jerry's one of the best. Jerry was the captain of the national championship team. And if you see Jerry, he looks much more like he's 50 years old than 80 years old. And his wife, Sarah, looks like she's 25. I mean, Jerry could probably go out and play for our guys tomorrow. Unbelievable man, great supporter of Loyola in the athletic department, and we're proud to call him a friend. So happy birthday, Jerry.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Certainly a very happy birthday to Jerry, turning 80 on Thursday. That's just tremendous. That's all the time we have tonight. Porter, thank you so much for joining us. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. I think this was terrific. We had a number of great questions as well, so hopefully we'll do this again sometime down the road, another edition of Porter's Mailbag. We appreciate all the season ticket holders, donors, alumni who joined us tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. I know certainly I did, and Steve and Porter did as well. A lot of good stuff covered. Tons of great questions, and we really only scratched the surface tonight, so we'll have to do it again soon. So Porter, Steve, we'll talk to you again soon, and to everybody else, have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Signing off from Porter's living room. Take care.